So yeah, it's a pleasure actually for me to introduce you to the job profile. What I'm here, especially that I also know the other side from the academics quite well. As you heard, that I spent quite some time, and you will hear that later in my presentation as well. Quite some time in academics, and now I might have a good overview of the advantages, disadvantages of both sides, either academia or pharma industry / industry alone. So Connie, if we can go to the next slide, please. I want to start with a very personal introduction, since, as Cornelia already mentioned, we have cultural aspects very high in our spirit. So we really want to know who we are here in Novartis, and therefore it's also important what you do offside of working. And so actually, I was raised on a soccer yard, what then became the skating yard in winter in a very small village in Upper Styria. Sport games of any kind was my company in my youth. But with age and maybe loss of condition, I rather went from sporty games towards hiking. And also when the weather is not that nice, I like to be at home playing keyboard, relaxing. So it's kind of a nice composition here. And as you see in the back in the header, this is actually a picture what I took by myself from the Wilde Kaiser in the Kufstein area. So when you want to get some energy back and you like hiking and being in the nature, I think there is no word to say more to this picture here. Besides my activities, I would define myself as being curious, and with curiosity also ambitiousness comes. But during the time getting a bit older, I also learned to be very focused, because you can get lost in details. So focusing and getting resilient towards some stressy timelines is one of my personality, I would say. And also important is my motto, and also my PhD thesis actually was titled in that way, keeping the balance. So you really have to find your balance by yourself. There is no general rule, no general guidance, or no SOP as we call it here, but you really have to find what is the balance for you to really be good in what you're doing and what you're wanting. So when we go to the next slide, please, I want to briefly show you my career path, what is basically academics. I did my master's in Graz in 2008, followed by a doctorate, as Vanessa already mentioned, what I finished in 2012, where I had also some nice time in Cornell University in Ithaca. So a great place to go. Also, nature is beautiful there. I finished then some papers, so I had 2 postdoc years still in Graz, working on basically yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, not for brewing beers, but really as a model organism for doing lipidomics on lean and obese yeast strains to find out molecular pathways, how lipid pathways or lipid metabolic ways in the body, so in the yeast cell, are regulated, and if this is translatable also to higher organisms. After that part, I was moving to Frankfurt, so I did some years abroad. 3.5 years I was at the Goethe University. There I moved a bit from the molecular biology part. So I moved to Frankfurt because I want to see more. I want to broaden my horizon, and there I moved from the molecular biologics towards the biochemistry field, where I did some protein expressions in E. coli and yeast strains, afterwards purification. And so since my goal there was membrane protein interactions towards liposomes, I also generated liposomes by myself and did some cryo-EM studies on them. So I got really kind of a broad background in everything, what means that I'm not expert in anything, but in everything, but I know quite some techniques during that. And after this Erwin Schrödinger stipendium from the FWF, I went back to Graz and wanted to get into a standalone career, working then on lipidomics, but not on yeast anymore, but one stage higher in evolution, let's say, doing flight genetics in Drosophila embryos, and also during aging of this little small nasty flies if you have them at home. But in the lab, they are great. They have a generation cycle of 10 days, and they can get to 70 days old if for your interest. I didn't know that. I was very amazed by the age of such flies. They do have neuron system. They do have insulin signaling pathways. They do have immune systems. So it is really a nice model organism to work with. And the genetics is established since over 100 years. So it was really a pleasure to work there. However, maybe some of you already experienced competition or having a standalone career path in academia doesn't get better these days compared to the past. So I was also searching for new job challenges, not only in academia but also in industry. So I screened, of course, Austria. There was Viennese industries, of course. There were other industries Europe-wide. I screened for them. However, I was actually not aware that we have such a big pharma company in Tyrol. I was not aware of that. Coming from Graz, it's not that far. It's 350 kilometers, but to me it was pretty surprising to have such a big company. What actually started as a brewing. From a historical point of view, it was a brewery. What then, I think, in the Second World War, become penicillin production to kind of heal the wounds or to help the soldiers which got wounded, and then this was increasing, and now I'm here. So my attitude to yeast and beer might be also related to that, and now I'm working in a very beautiful area, but as a principal scientist, as mentioned before, as in the analytic team chromatography, focusing on HPLC systems and driving the projects. So can we go to the next slide, please? So then I came basically really interested in this area here, and by looking at different job profiles, it was not only the analytical scientist profile what kind of tackled my attention, because I've said before, I did some protein expressions, I did chromatographic steps, I did mainly things. So I think I could have applied to at least 5 job positions there. But since I always wanted to be coming from the chemistry side, an analytical scientist, I was mainly focusing on being an analytical scientist 100% and not only part-time as it was in academia. And this job description here, where I pointed out the major points, what gained my attention was that you really design, plan, perform and document scientific experiments in a timely delivery manner. So we have to be fast. This is what I heard then in my interview, what I had for the drug products and all that. We have to analyze and interpret, of course, in the early stages of some projects, all the data what we gain and kind of draw our experimental conclusions out of it. This is also a highly team-driven event, what we are doing. So we'll come to that later. So we are not isolated here and sitting at the computer and crying on the screen. We really work as a team and try to help each other and drive the projects further. Training and mentoring. I come from academia. I mentioned this was my daily bread there, and I love to share knowledge and learn from other people. And this only happens when you interact with people, and therefore this is very important, especially when you work in very controlled. We call it here GXP, so good laboratory practice or other practices environment, where we really have to be very clear in what you're doing with regard to patient safety, what in the end is the utmost goal, what we have always to maintain. What is nice is, and this was something what I was a bit concerned by moving from academia to pharma industry, is that here you also can lead initiatives. So it's not that you stick to protocols. We always have to learn new. We don't have to invent the wheel new, but we have to drive our processes faster. We have to improve quality. We have to reduce the manufacturing steps, what of course improve the quality of the product, because you kind of minimize errors what can happen. And so this is also very well appreciated here, that your ideas are really heard and evaluated. Of course, not all of them are implemented, but they really come to be visible. And this is really something where you get honored in a way that your contribution is really highly appreciated here. So on the next slide, what I put together is my daily work routine. So from the overall packages, what I told you now, we do not have a daily work routine actually here in the analytical department, because in development it's basically driven by the status quo of a project. So if the project is fully developed, you might have more work routine because you have your different methods, your different procedures, what you apply to test for certain products. But in the development phase, where I actually work the most time, you really have to be curious, to be fast, to be smart, to really have this to get the things done which are needed, and not on a daily routine, but you get 2 weeks maybe to develop a method, and then it should be working, as an example maybe. So this is, you have to develop, to optimize, to run, and of course to validate a method, that it's not only working for 2 weeks, but hopefully very robustly over years, to really control the products what we develop. A little bit more than compared to academia, I would say, is the documentation. Again, with regard to patient safety, you really have to document what you're doing in a, I would say, more proper way than in academics. So here we really need to check everything, to document it down, what of course facilitates then troubleshooting what we are doing, but what takes some time. And this is what you have to live with some lab work, what you do besides the fun part. But if we just go to the next slide, I tried to roughly estimate the amount what you kind of do in this particular job as analytical scientist. You spend 15% of your work day in trainings, which is very important to be always up to date, in some meetings which are important, and in also interchangeable in interactions with other teams. 25%, so a quarter, I would say, really goes into documentation at the site, and you have to do this simultaneously to the lab work. But still 60% remain for the fun part, and this is really to be curious, to get things better, to optimize methods, to generate robustness and not fancy stuff. So we prefer here to go the robust way. We don't need fancy methods, we need robust methods. But this is also the beauty of science, to develop something what is robust and works for years. What I forgot to mention is on the right-hand side, you see here two pictures of our machines actually. So the upper one is a dissolution apparatus, where you can dissolve different products like tablets. So it would mimic, the dissolution mimics the digestion of a tablet and the distribution of the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the API. And it's coupled to an online UV system, but you also, for more details, you can couple it to an HPLC system and analyze also impurities, which is important to control. What brings me to the lower picture, this is our beautiful new labs with the view on the church in Kundl here. Different HPLC systems, and we have in total 30, I think, in our department. And what people who worked with HPLC systems might appreciate is that they stand on a very low level, so it's pretty easy to exchange the effluents on top of the machines. And this is also linked to an automatic waste system, so you cannot spill the floor. So it really makes the 60% fun part even more fun than it is, as it is. On the next slide, I do have basically my last slide, not to run over time. You might be really interesting why I choose Sandoz here, and what I like really at this job position, having also the experience in academic years. It's here actually, it's basically related to academics. We have here the teamwork. You really interact, you exchange yourself. We have our coffee breaks where we talk about it. We have our Mensa breaks. It's a very good Mensa what we have here, where you just by chance hit some people and ask them, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? This is for method development very important. You don't need to be expert, but you have to know the experts here. And we have quite some experts at this site, I can tell, after being a year in Novartis. However, in decision making, it could be seen as a pro and a con. We have to be fast and efficient. So there is no time to really spend much of the time to perfectly control things. You really have to be smart from the beginning on, and we call this design of experiment, DOE, and quality by design. So we really invest in preparing for some methods to be ready, and then being fast, because time is money. This is of course true, and so therefore we have really to be smart and do what is needed, requested, and being really high quality delivering products in the end. Time to shine, I mentioned in the beginning. This is what I mean, that their own ideas are really implemented. You can have new ideas, especially when you have a broad background from academics. You might know techniques which people here are not aware, and which might lead very easy and fast to some measurements, which is better than identifying other excipients of products. So this is what I really like from the job, and also Tyrol area. I think it was also in the video. You really have a good work-life balance here. Just seeing this beautiful picture, I always get to rest just by seeing it, and this kind of stands in a good relationship to the stressy work environment, what you certainly have. So with that, I want to maybe just add one more thing, because this is when I kind of recap this presentation, I thought, okay, what is now the difference between industry and my let's say how I see industry before I entered the job, and how the reality is. So I was thinking industry has tight timelines. It is a money-driven decision world, and you have a high workload. So this is what I naively thought would be. And the reality actually is that, yes, there are tight timelines, but this is actually good, because this drives the projects. It's not money driven, actually it's quality driven, but it's money controlled, because of course we have to care of patient safety quality wise, but we also have to make some money to invest in the future. So money also plays a certain role. So sometimes projects are cancelled because just business case is not good. But then we don't start the projects even. We decided that earlier. And the high workload is also true, but here, as I said, keeping the balance, you work hard and you rest hard. So it's really appreciated and accepted here that you stick to your hours. When you're working efficiently, you have, I've never worked on a weekend, what was very new to me coming from academia. So you can do the job in 5 days if you are efficient, and then you really have 2 days to rest. And I think this makes also here the work very, very attractable to people. And I will just close this now with a quote by Albert Einstein. I think this is also important. If you never made a mistake, you have never tried anything new. And so we are really always curious. We try to interact, we try to evaluate new things, new ways of thinking, reimagine medicine, what Cornelia said in the beginning is really highly appreciated here. So if you're a curiosity-driven scientist with a broad background, I think you will find your niche here, and you will get a good career path in the future by joining Novartis Sandoz. And with that, I want to thank you, what is standing on the last slide of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any question you have.
Thank you very much for your talk. If there are questions, we're now going to move on to the Q&A. And if you have questions, we highly encourage you to just raise your hands in Zoom and unmute yourself. Turn on your video camera and ask questions. If you are really shy, you can also put them into the chat and I will read them out loud for you. There's a hand. Okay. So thank you. We're going to move on to the Q&A now. Renata.
Hello, Harald, and thank you for the talk. I wanted to ask you if somebody that just finishes their PhD in basic science would be interested in looking for a job in Novartis, what would it be enough just to have a PhD? For what type of jobs would there be available for this kind of people?
Yeah, hello, Renata. Thanks for the question. Actually, you necessarily do not need a PhD. This is something what comes on top of it maybe, but of course with 4 years of PhD you might lose some time what you can spend in getting trained at the university, but in every level we are searching for people. So there are positions like I have where you really own your own projects. For that, you might need experience, you might need a PhD, but also engineers are very welcome. So you just need experience, I would say. Yeah. The other thing is some bureaucracy, what comes with it. But we also have senior scientists here, where you have a master's degree basically, and then you start working below under the umbrella of a more experienced scientist. And by time, let's say 1-2 years, just to say some house numbers, it depends how steep your career evolvedness improvement is. You get promoted by chance. Yeah, if there is a free position and you kind of showed that you can work and that you are smart and drive projects, then there are many ways for you to evolve here, not only in the chemistry field, but if you see that this is maybe the wrong way to go, we have the biologics in Schaftenau where you can go protein expression and other stuff, still coupled to analytics. So it really depends. So actually, if I wouldn't feel that much appreciated and happy here, I would have searched for jobs inside Novartis already yet. The earlier you find your niche, the better it is for the future. Yeah, to feel comfortable and being really in the job you want to be.
Okay, thanks. And I don't know if you could answer me this question, but what would be something on one person's CV who applies for a job that would be maybe interesting for Novartis, like knowing some specific techniques, like you mentioned, or something else?
Yeah, maybe a very recent issue. What we discovered here is that we have some lipid mixtures in some drug products here. Yeah, so you use them as an excipient, and for that, we were not sure how to quantify them in a good way. And then I said, well, I have 12 years experience in lipidomics. If I can measure 250 lipids in one single HPLC run, I might be capable of measuring 2 or 3 of them. And at the side, this new method also brings the beautiness that you can also detect impurities in such things, what you might not see when you do a QNMR on it. Yeah. So such things are highly appreciated. So whatever you have, I think you will find a way to use it here. You just have to talk to the right people. But in development, it's really interconnecting and not you have a team and you stick to the team, but you reach out to the experts, and that makes this beautiness what I got to know in academia and what also fills out here my daily life.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So yeah, thanks for the talk. And it seems that you put a lot of weight on experience. So I guess my question is, if the experience is not specifically pharma based, but coming from food or other kind of, but with a lot of experience in method development and these kind of things, chromatography, whatever, is that maybe not a plus, but is it a requirement? How would you call it? Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
I haven't seen this as a requirement. I mean, you always see that experience in a job is kind of mandatory in many of applications everywhere. But when you fulfill 80% of some application bullet points, you might apply to that job. You don't have to be 100% match. If you bring the correct mindset, this is how I would phrase it. If you are curious, if you are smart, if you have this experience to be curious and smart in the same time, this is of course a big plus because this speeds up processes. If you go the right way without testing 17 different parameters, but you know this will not work, I know this. Let's go for the extreme of first, test how discriminatory a method is, then narrow down to a window where we go and optimize it afterwards. So if you can speed up this by bringing some experience, or as I call it, gut feeling, that of course is a plus, but it's not a must, because for such things I am here, or colleagues of mine, to really bring you into this mindset to work in this team, to interact, to ask the right questions at the right time, not be shy, try to shine and be really a part of the team. Yeah, I hope this answers the question. So the mindset is, I think, a plus, but if it's not there, there are ways to learn how we operate here in Novartis Sandoz.
Thank you. And I guess maybe the question is not specifically for you, but and do you know about for third-party nationals? Like, is that a hindrance, or?
I might give this question to Cornelia. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
happy to answer questions. So thank you very much. And this, I would have anyhow at the very end of the presentation said a few words, but happy to address it right now. So we, as stated on one of the slides, we are very, very open to all kind of nationalities. We have 76 nationalities already, and this would already give you maybe a hint that we are very diverse and we are very open to diversity. So when it comes to application, regardless where you're from, we support, if you are the selected candidate, regardless of your nationality, we fully support a relocation process. And if this requires an immigration process because you have a different nationality, we have a so-called really a global mobility team that works with the final candidate to support this person throughout the entire onboarding process, so helping with the entire, legal immigration documentation things that you need to prepare to get the working permit in Austria, but also helping you to settle either yourself or maybe even with family, if this is a situation, to help settle, find an apartment, clarify some taxation topics that you might have or something like that. So there's a huge support which we offer for every candidate that is successful in the application, and provide as much as possible the help to get started and onboarded.
Thanks a lot.
Questions in the chat. I will have a personal question. It is that you have said that you have worked quite a lot of time in academia, and you have done a postdoc, and I would like to know what if you had some type of culture shock in your daily routine when you changed from academia to industry, maybe positive or negative?
Very good question. I have to kind of fill some thoughts by talking about something else and maybe repeating the question. So when I come from academia here, the first shock what I had, openly speaking, is that there were a tremendously amount of meetings. So I mean, this was also Corona-driven, I think, of course, that you don't have live meetings. Normally in academia, you sit together with the whole group and discuss the things. Here, everybody was sitting in the office, having the headset on like we have now, or people are in home office and just contributing from at home. So this was a little bit of a shock, but this, of course, then turned out to be not an issue anymore when this big wave of Corona was over and we were allowed to work in the lab again very freely. Still, there are some meetings what could have also been solved by email, but this is I think also true for academia, that sometimes the boss wants to have something what you say, well, let's do this later, it's not on my priority list. So actually no, but talking about all this, there was no big shock. It was more, I was positively surprised about the efficiency. So that you are really fast, that you don't have time to control each and every single step in a subsequent way, but you have really to be smart to cover everything as soon as possible. Yeah. So the critical quality attributes of a material, for example, that this is defined before you start an experiment. So it positively surprised how efficient you can be if you spend maybe a week in the design of an experiment and then executing it, rather than trying to execute and learn by trial and error. What of course then comes afterwards, but in a more controlled way, even because you spent this initial phase in really designing an experiment and already interchanging with other people to get opinions, to evaluate and to optimize. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm now going to introduce our second speaker. Her name is Vidica Vasiljevich, and she has a Master of Science in Biotech, and she has been working since 2019 at Novartis. She used to be a process expert. Now she's a technical steward, and she's going to talk about the job profile of a senior process expert.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, for organizing this nice event, and also thank you to all participants for joining us. As Vanessa has introduced me, my name is Vidica Vasiljevich. I'm here to introduce you the job position process expert, which I held for about 3 years. But before we start with our deep dive into typical process expert tasks, my daily work routine as a process expert, and the major aspects I liked about this job, I would give you some background about myself and my personal career. I would describe myself as a nature enthusiast. I like being outside, exploring new places, seeing new landscapes, flora, fauna, as well as tasting new food. So this is me over there, and on some of the pictures, on one of these pictures, you can see my favorite animals as well as my own fermentation product, since sourdough baking is one of my favorite hobbies. So maybe it is not a surprise that I have always pursued life sciences, and I decided to study at the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences, which you will see on the next slide. I hold a master's degree in biotechnology and did several internships and student jobs during my studies. I started working in pharmaceutical industry at the company BMI, where I had the position scientist in product development, and later on the position a bioprocess associate in upstream manufacturing. And in 2019, I joined Novartis in the division drug substance Kundl in the position process expert. Most recently, I have changed my position to technical steward in manufacturing science and technology in the same division, drug substance Kundl. But now let's move on to the major topic of my presentation, the process expert job position, where I have summarized the most prominent responsibility of a process expert for you, which would be the root cause investigation, risk assessment, definition of corrective and preventive actions, change control management, and manufacturing process improvement. Process expert task may not be limited to this task and could vary due to individual specialization. However, especially root cause investigation and risk assessment play a major role in most process expert jobs. In order to give you even a clearer view on what is actually meant by these keywords, I have thought of more depictive examples. Now let's start with root cause investigation and risk assessment. They are required for each deviation. What is a deviation? A deviation describes an incident which occurred unplanned and can be distinguished from the routine process. One example of an unplanned happening, which probably everybody could think of nowadays, maybe loss of electrical power. So loss of electrical power would cause to the breakdown of some equipment. Imagine at your home, loss of electrical power, your fridge at home without electrical power. So your job as a process expert would be to find out what has led to this incident and what could be any possible consequence of this incident. In terms of root cause investigation, you would ask questions like, what did cause the electrical power loss in the fridge? Could it be that the fridge was unplugged? How did it get unplugged, or was the circuit breaker even triggered? And why was it triggered? In terms of risk assessment, you would ask different questions. You would ask, did the inside temperature change? At which extent and for which time period did it change? And you would assess if this change in temperature has any impact on the product quality of the products you have stored in this fridge. You would also assess the full scope of this incident. So you need to assess if only this fridge was impacted or if there is any other equipment which was impacted. So when you have your findings, the final root cause which led to this incident, and assessed all the risks associated with this incident, you would get active you would initiate corrective and preventive actions. The aim of these actions is to eradicate the root cause, prevent the event from reoccurring, and also to mitigate all risks from the impact. So in the very simple case, our case that the fridge was unplugged, immediate correction would be to plug in the fridge again. If it's not that simple, so that the unplugging occurred unintentionally due to another activity which was performed in the same area very close to the plug, then you would require preventive actions, prevent the reoccurrence. One potential preventive action could be to secure the plug efficiently so that even if the activities occur very close, they do not jeopardize the energy supply. Or if it's not possible otherwise, you would it might be required to relocate these activities to another area further away from the plug, so even then to not jeopardize the energy supply of this fridge. It depends on the case, what is feasible. And these corrective and preventive actions could include a change of an already established procedure. Since we are in a good manufacturing practice environment, any change in these established procedures in facility, equipment, manufacturing process, analytical methods would require change control management. Change control management is in place to have the changes properly assessed before starting the implementation, and to have every change traceable at every stage of the change control. And how are now the process experts involved in this change control management? Process experts could be involved in the assessment, in the implementation actions, or even coordinators of these changes. It depends on the topic. Now that the last point would be manufacturing process improvements. Last but not least, we have established processes. As I said, changes in established processes require change control management, which is a high effort, but not impossible. So especially pursue innovation, we would follow on new technologies or other possibilities when they are given to achieve higher process robustness or outputs. So if we have any possibility to achieve this, we would consider this reasonable process improvements and pursue this project. Process experts are encouraged to share their ideas on potential improvements, to participate in evaluation, and sometimes even project managers of such projects. These tasks seem still rather broad, depending on what's the actual manufacturing process. And this is the right time point to explain, as I show on the next slide, the sequence of the manufacturing process, that process experts are involved throughout the whole process. They are usually specialized in one part, either in upstream manufacturing, where the pharmaceutical product is generated via cultivation of the production cells, or in the downstream part, where the pharmaceutical product is purified from a complex solution resulting from the cultivation growth, or they are focused on the drug product part, where the final formulation and filling occurs in highly classified clean room zones. You can also see that the facilities there are big differences between the facilities of these parts. I like to share these pictures with you. So for upstream manufacturing, we have the exemplary complex supply of a bioreactor. And for the downstream part, I put in as an example the chromatography equipment, the industrial chromatography equipment, highly different from the chromatography you saw in Harald's presentation. And then for the highly classified clean room zones with the isolators equipment representative for the drug product part. My positions in Novartis are focused so far mostly on the downstream manufacturing. And so maybe it's good to know, because in the next slide, I will show you my daily work routine to give you some further view behind the scenes. On the next slide, I have summarized the activities which were on my agenda on a representative working day, which started in the morning between 7 and 8 a.m. It started with the manufacturing process update meeting. where I had to prepare, or some other colleagues, depending on which process was running. So several functions participated in these meetings, mostly operational manufacturing, but also engineering, quality assurance, quality control. And this several functions which participated had regular working hours, whereas the production was run 24/7. So we had updates on Monday, which were from all the data, all the happenings from the weekend. And on every other working day, we had updates from the previous day, including the nights. Which topics were discussed in these meetings and what was to prepare. So in my case, for downstream, we checked the chromatography profiles. Most recent analytical results would be checked, and even schedule status. So we would want to know if there is any delay and what did cause this delay. Especially, we wanted to know if there are any irregularities observed. And if there were, this could dictate the whole following day or days. So an investigation would start most probably with an on-site visit or inspection of the affected equipment or room, as well as including the interviews with the incident observers to obtain the first-hand information on what has happened. The investigation would proceed by utilizing some useful tools like 5Y, fishbone diagram, is-not analysis, failure mode and efficiency analysis for risk assessments. And when the investigation results were all available, this needs to be written down in a report. So report editing is also on the agenda, as well as trainings. So we are under continuous improvement in good manufacturing practice. This leads to updates of established standard operating procedure, and those updates need to be distributed among the target audience in a timely manner, and to ensure that you get informed, you would perform the trainings on a regular basis. Now that we know that a process expert has a lot of work to do, here comes the good news. You're not alone in this work. So you are quite connected as a process expert in every task you do. You are not micromanaged. You can take your own decision, but you work with various departments in almost every task. To list just a few departments which you work together is quality assurance, quality control, all functions of operational manufacturing, engineering, manufacturing science and technology, process development, regulatory colleagues from regulatory, material management, and so on. Of course, other process experts from predecessor and subsequent process parts. So there are many colleagues. Now let's go on to the aspects which I want to share with you, which I like the most about this job position. So first of all, I want to start to tell you that in contrast to my expectation during university time, that working under good manufacturing practice would be rather repetitive, I have experienced a quite varied work life. Now you can follow on with the unplanned and partly unpredictable incidents. You have different strategies to solve them and different outcomes. So it was quite interesting to work on that. And with your experience and expertise, you would recognize the weak spots and prevent events, best case before they happen. And then you will feel the sense of achievement for your successful improvements and effective corrective and preventive actions, which I liked. And what I liked also about that was that these achievements were recognized and rewarded by my operational management. The major reward for myself was the support in my career development. So I was able to follow on my interests, but also smaller rewards, like we have a company intern gift platform. Let's say it this way. It's called Sparks, where every colleague has a budget of 100 points to share with the other colleagues. That way, you can say thank you for the especially good collaboration, or to show that you are inspired by a special expertise of a colleague. I liked also this small rewards, not only because you can exchange the points for vouchers, but also because of the nice words from my colleagues. This was something I liked. The next point would be state-of-the-art manufacturing facility and equipment, which was one thing which encouraged me in the first place to apply. In university, I saw the equipment and on pictures and performed calculations for up and down scaling processes in the industrial manufacturing facilities, but we were only able to work with lab equipment or pilot scale equipment. So I was quite overwhelmed when I was the first time in Tyrol and saw this big facility by all the opportunities which are given with it. Another thing I like, it's not special to this position, but because it applies also for the current one, we have flexible working hours and the possibility to work from home. I highly profit in my work-life balance from that. So I like to have sometimes my lunch at home, but I also enjoy going to the office and seeing my colleagues. It's quite nice to have both opportunities. Last but not least, this is something special about a process expert. It's a highly interconnected position. You have a great opportunity to get familiar with the complex organizational structure and get connected with various departments. This is how I recognized my interest for manufacturing science and technology. And I also recognized that I want to take further steps in my career development in this direction. And I took this opportunity by starting the new position as a technical steward. With these words, I want to encourage you to take brave steps one at a time in the direction which drives you the most. This is also why I chose my closing quote. If you always do what you always done, you'll always get what you always got. So be brave and make some changes. And thank you for listening. And feel welcome to ask me any questions about the job position process expert. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vidica. Now we're going to open the Q&A. If you have any questions, again, just raise your hand. We highly encourage you to then unmute and show your video. Again, if you are shy, you can also ask questions into the chat and I will read them out loud. We actually have a question that came in the meantime. It's from Tamara. She says, "Thank you. My question is it possible to work internationally at Novartis, for example, to go abroad, and is it encouraged?"
So if I can take that question, so there are multiple ways of answering this question, to be very open and honest. So first of all, working internationally is also possible in the existing roles. So there's always a global connection, a global colleague, there's always another side that maybe has a different experience. So there is already at that point in a position that you would be holding in Austria a lot of interchangeability that you could find and that you can seek actively with the entire Novartis network. So this is definitely, we are a global company with a global network, and we really take advantage of this with regards to knowledge sharing. So this is one aspect of it. The second one, going abroad. So once you have started with Austria contract, it's possible to go abroad. So absolutely, it's also encouraged. We do have a lot of people that are now in Austrian contract that previously have been at different sites, either in development or in manufacturing. So this is across all areas. Usually, I tell you, it is managed by changing the employment country from one country to the next. So you would need to apply internally. Usually, internal applications are very highly valued and given high priority, a high preference also, because obviously you're very familiar with the tools that are the same across the entire network. So there's always a very big desire to hire international candidates and have them relocate from one country to other. As we answered earlier on, this would also be supported by the global mobility team, supporting the entire relocation from one country to the other. What we have done in the past, but we don't do so often anymore, are global assignments that you really have a dedicated time, let's say 6 months or 12 months at a different site, with already a return date and a return contract. So most of the time, we really encourage people to leave for different experience in a different country, and once they have acquired enough experience and want to come back, they would need to go through another round of interviews and apply for the job postings that at this stage are open. So I hope this answers your question, Tamara.
Thank you very much. I personally have one question for Vidica. I know that she has a master's in biotechnology, and as someone who knows roughly the curriculum of biotechnology, I wanted to ask you, which skills did you have to learn after your master's, and which skills do you think are very transferable? So what tips would you give master students in, for example, biotechnology, or people that have a similar curriculum to biotechnology? Which skills should they try to improve on, soft skills or hard skills?
Biotechnology does suit this job position quite well, because you are it's a multidisciplinary field. So you cover the understanding of a bioprocess, which is the main part, and also you have some engineering skills, of course, enough to have a proper conversation with the real engineers. And you also, my studies, we learned about pharmaceutical companies and the quality management systems. So this was also part, I profited highly from all these parts. So for other fields where I don't know the curricula, so these are 3 major parts which I would recommend you to have some insight into these ones. Of course, you need some experience in the company to be more advanced. For me, in the beginning, it was the most challenging thing was the complex organizational structure. So to know whom to ask if we have so many departments. This is something you will not learn in university. You cannot learn in university. Maybe you will know some structures from other companies, but still you need some experience in the company. So did I answer your question completely? Let's evaluate. You have.
Yes, I think so. As far as I have understood. Okay. Thank you very much. And our last talk is by Cornelia Kofler. She already introduced Novartis, and now she's making a workshop, New Ways of Working. And she has a master's degree in international business. She has worked in many different fields in recruitment and employer branding, and she has worked for Novartis since 2016. I will give the word back to you.
For this part, I'll be very happy if you have any questions to really raise them right away. The topics that we're tackling are very different from slide to slide. So if there's any immediate question, feel free to, again, just raise your hand or post a question in the chat, and we'll be answering for you. New ways of working. Why did I pick this topic? I personally believe, and there's some reasons here, that the world around us is changing quite fast, and we need to adopt it. And why is it changing? Of course, there's some mega trends happening around us, and that would be digitalization and automation, which makes, if you read some studies, in 2050, maybe half of our jobs will be not there anymore or look very, very different. So this is a future ahead of us, and we need to be adaptable to this. Of course, on the other side, we have a demographic shift in our society. meaning there is a new generation coming into the workforce, other generations are retiring, so there's also a shift of work preferences in that respect, but also the war of talent. I think this is something not new to any one of you. There is a scarcity of talents out there, and everyone is fighting for getting the best talents into the organization. On the other side, and this is something which is not fully in our control, but also some trends that obviously we're part of it, and this is also influencing our organization, but also our society as such. Our global crises, as we have experienced the last few years with the pandemic, but also some geopolitical crises or uncertainties, such as the war in Ukraine and so on. There are some other influences that are obviously impacting ourselves. So with all the changes happening around us, there are new skills and new behaviors entering our job market, entering our workforce. And as a company, you definitely need to react, and best case, not only react, but really be proactively monitoring trends and being ahead of time, not to be behind of the needs of people. So that's why the employee experience is some key word for us, which is really, really, really important that we closely monitor and try to be really, as mentioned, on the top of the time what is required and needed, and workplace flexibility is just one of the trends are very, very crucial for us. And what I would like you now to be a little bit contributing to the discussion, I will be sharing also in the chat a link with you. This is a Mentimeter survey that I'm using here, and would like you to click either on the link in the chat, but what you could also do is take your phone, like the scanner mode, scan the QR code, and you will also get to the very same Mentimeter questions. And there is one question that I'm raising: what does it really mean to you? I would like to give you, let's say, about 2 minutes time. You can enter a word or multiple words, what it means for you personally, and what you connect with new way of working. And I will be sharing a different screen where you can see also the results. But I'll be quiet for a minute or two to give you an opportunity. I hope the link works. Let me know if it doesn't work for anyone.
Yes, it works.
Perfect. So I'm really curious to see what is your feedback. So I will be trying to switch the screen. I see there are some words coming in already, and it's still evolving and developing. So keep on going. Put your words in, and while that I will be trying to summarize what you're seeing here as a result. So we have 7 people, so please don't be shy. It's anonymous. Maybe I should have mentioned it. So we see here a lot of words coming in, such as flexibility, home office, 4-day week. We see also topics like work-life balance. So I guess online meetings, this is all about the flexibility, how you create the work environment. And I will be happy to share a little bit more insights on how we do that. I think it goes also some additional words that are coming in here is personal growth, as in your development. But also the work-life balance is something that I see quite big, meaning there's multiple people stepping into it. Online meetings, work-life balance. One topic, and I really appreciate that somebody mentioned that, as this is really also a very big topic within Novartis, is mental health and mindfulness. So we do a lot of communication. There's a lot of trainings, a lot of offer when it comes to mental health and personal well-being, and we really encourage people to go to these trainings, read through the materials that we have on personal well-being, and also in working time, you can dedicate time for trainings, because we really recognize it's so important that people feel healthy, that they feel that they are in control of their personal work-life balance, and the mental health is really important here as well. So on the next slide, so thank you very much for the contributions. I really, really like that. And we'll be going back to the presentation, and you will see in the next slides some of the topics that I would like to highlight are going into the same direction as you have provided now in your work cloud. So being back here at the presentation, a very brief insight, as this is really going into the direction how we work and how we interact with each other. So at the beginning, you already saw inspired, curious, ambitious, and integrity are some very strong words, and I can really tell you that every associate you would ask, they are remembering those 4 words. So we're very strong in promoting them, but not only promoting them, this is part of everyday work habits of all of us. And I'd like to point out 2 of them. Just time-wise, I might need to limit it to some topics. Curiosity. This is really, really big, and we heard it already when Vititza and Harald were talking that this is on their daily job is very much required. But what do we do on top of that? So we have a lot of training programs, a lot of development opportunities. On the one side, of course, being technical trainings, if you wish to learn more techniques or methodologies. On the other side, we have a lot of offerings when it comes to leadership trainings or personal development trainings. And as mentioned, the mental health and the mindfulness is one of that. It's very heavily promoted at the current time, as we see the clear importance of a healthy and a stable workforce, because as mentioned at the beginning, this is we're only as good as our people. So we really want to invest time in this very important topic. But to give a little bit an extra on the curiosity and the learning aspect, just to mention that as well, we have granted access for all our associates to, for example, get a full access on LinkedIn trainings, but also Coursera, for example, not only for personal use, but also for friends and families, where you can sign up, for your sister, for example. You could also use a Coursera link and do some personal trainings on topics that you would like. So this is something very strong. The learning culture is something at very, very top of our mind and priorities. And the other topic that I'd like to briefly point out is this word unbossed. You may not have heard of it, but for us it's a very common used wording. Unbossed is something we really were striving very diligently to change our work environment for a few years. This means a lot of unlearning old habits and learn new habits, especially for leaders. But not only this, what we mean is really that every associate is encouraged to take up responsibility, to lead projects, to contribute ideas. There's not such a hierarchy thinking. And maybe we can even ask Vititza and Harald if they want to contribute to this topic and show what it really means in the daily practice. So there is a lot of effort in it, and it is really a very strong theme. Vititza.
Yes, I could freely add one just simple example is doesn't make any difference in English, but in German you could you would use the formal language or to pay higher respect to your managers. This is what we don't do. We always we talk to everyone on the same level. So we use just a surname, and also in my everyday work, I experienced that I could freely make my decisions. I could every time go to my manager if I needed some support, but I had the complete trust to make my own decisions and work unbossed.
Thank you. Good. So if there are no questions or additional comments, I really wanted to give you this insight in our values and behaviors and how they really influence our daily work. Another topic, and again, you are required to enter your thoughts this time, and again, I'll show you also in the link. This is now, before I step into it and explore a little bit further how we look at those topics, can you please rate on the scale? You can simply shift the little arrow there. How important are certain topics for you personally? Again, I hope the link works for everyone. I'll give you another minute. So it should be a simple, easy request, but I'm really interested to see what is important to you when you would be entering the workforce, or you already are in a company, what you value the most.
Maybe I just use the time while you're typing
How
in your.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
No,
it's working.
Yeah.
I just want to use the time to not having the silent moment here, because I wanted to add. I saw on this first Mentimeter answers also respect. So I think this is a very important word what we use here. So we are transparent. We are sometimes having, I call it, fruitful discussions, because I don't want to say we fight, but it's always respectful. You can have different opinions, but as long as you stay respectful, it drives you further, and you agree to a certain point, or you just disagree, and you have to find a compromise afterwards. But I think this word respect is also very, very, very big. It was a bit estimated here in the Mentimeter, so we really live here respect, as we are a multicultural company. So this, I think, I just wanted to point it out once more. Thank you.
Thank you for this addition. I fully agree. It's very, very important how we work, and it's not about personal feelings, about really the content discussion that we value here. Good. Thanks for adding that. And while we are speaking, I can now show you some of the results where we have already the feedback from some of you. So it's very nice to see, and I walk you through understanding the vision and the clear goals of the company is very, very highly rated from all of you. Similar to the recognition of work, has pretty much the same value, as well as the opportunities to learn and grow. Close to that is the healthy work-life balance, but also the opportunity to combine family and work. For me, it's interesting to see, to be very open and transparent here with the home office opportunity is not so highly important to you. Nevertheless, we have a nice flexibility ruled at hours, which is nicely appreciated, but to me, it's surprising. All right. So thanks for this feedback session. I will tap onto the topics in the future, or the next few slides, and give you a little bit of insight how we do this at Novartis. So thank you again. So one thing that I wanted to explain to you and give you some insights is our performance management program. We call it Evolve. Evolve is very extensive, what we understand with it. It really is built on 4 elements that all together throughout the entire year help us to grow and become better all together, but also as individually. And they are all based on the values and behaviors that I earlier on presented to you. So what I wanted to share with you is objective setting process. How does that work with us? So basically, we do not have a top-down approach. It really is a collective approach. So what it means, of course, it's not that every department makes his or her own goals. It is aligned eventually, but every associate is asked in a so-called objective setting procedures or ceremonies to contribute of their own personal ideas. What does it mean? How can this person or the department contribute to the overall vision statement of the organization? So collectively, really contributes everyone to create a big objective. So every department is having this objective ceremony and putting it bottom up so that it really is summarizing, and it needs obviously to match with the company vision. But this is a very collaborative approach, and the way we do it is that we don't have strict KPIs in our objective process. It's more about what we call big and bold objectives that are inspiring, that is really motivating everyone, but is also on the other side understood by everyone. So it's not some high level objective that is hard to make sense of for you personally in your day-to-day job routine, but it really makes sense and you know how to support the entire organization to become successful by contributing your own part to it. So this is a very nice approach. It's not only reviewed once or made once in a year, beginning of the year. There are so-called retro sessions where you sit down with your department, look at the objective that you have set at the beginning. Is there any changes to it? Are there any near step future activities that as a department you need to achieve? So this is broken down into smaller bits and pieces that really helps you to understand how to put that into practice. So this is one part of it, how we set the performance management, obviously. The other one is frequent check-ins, as we call them, and feedback. This is a very strong element of our culture. We believe that overall we can only be successful if everyone has an open, trust-based relationship with each other. And by doing so, it is also, and then we are back to this word that Harald brought up, respectfully work with each other and collaborate, but also being able to provide a good feedback. Having a feedback conversation is always seen as giving somebody a gift of being valued. Because if you don't feel valued to this person, the person would not tell you what a certain situation made you feel and how you would like to improve the collaboration. So feedback immediately, and not only, at the end of the year where you hear something in March where you said something, this was irritating to another person. Feedback needs to be direct, feedback needs to be immediate, and needs to be looking forward to the future, how you can better collaborate. And this is some approach that is lived between peers, but also, of course, between associates and managers and how they work with each other. So the check-ins, they should happen regularly. There is one way of documenting it in the system, but basically what we really encourage everyone to do, to have regular meetings, one-on-ones with every associate, but also with the entire team to have a check-in and say, okay, what's going good, what's going bad, where can I remove obstacles as your manager? And this is the crucial conversations to have. How can a manager help to be successful in your job? And that's what check-ins are there for, to remove any hurdles and help you as a team member to become successful for the overarching goal. And so feedback is the one thing. Another thing, which is obviously also very important, and we heard already from Pizza some comments about this, how you're recognized for your work, because there's many occasions where people do excellent and really outstanding things, and there should be a very essential part of our culture that we reward, but also recognize the contribution of people. We call, as Vititza said, we call the program that we use Spark. Spark is a program which has multiple ways how we can work on it. So first of all, there is a way that, I send a personal card to Harald and say, happy birthday. I heard it's a special day of you. So this is also a way how you can use it. Or the other way, how Vititza explained, every associate, everyone gets 100 points, which is an equivalent of $100 US, also to give you an idea. And those 100 points can be individually distributed to colleagues and peers inside the country, but also outside if you have any network out there, where you say thank you, where you recognize the help of somebody else, or says, that there was outstanding and you really appreciate, for example, collaboration. So this is widely used, and we really encourage everyone to spend that budget across the entire network and across the entire year, and will be filled up the next year. But again, there's also additional way of recognizing people. So this is really individually from one person to the next. If people or individuals, but also teams are doing some outstanding activities, some outstanding initiatives, which is really going beyond and above, we definitely want to recognize that also. And doing this, we have two different team awards. One is two different awards. One is a team award. The other one is an individual award, where everyone can suggest anyone or any team and say, I think they did an outstanding job. So I, as Cornelia, am suggesting the team of 5 people, they should get a reward of 1,000 points because I think they have really great contribution to the success of our company. It will be reviewed by the managers, but I really appreciate that the way it works, that every associate can suggest any individual or any team for their great work that they did contributing to the company's success. So I really, really think this is a crucial part of our culture, being very proud of the achievements of each other. And one last topic from my side, how we do the rewards. So of course, everyone has of us a base salary, but depending on the job band where you would enter, you also have a short-term incentive, which could be 5, 10, 15%, depending on your entry level and your promotions. So this is always given to you, depending also it's multiplied with the company performance factor, so to say. There's one factor that is usually above 100%. It could theoretically also be lower than 100%, but in my career so far that hasn't occurred. So this is multiplied, so your base salary, your short-term incentive by the business performance factor of the company, and then this is distributed to all associates throughout the next following year. So this is also something just to give you some insights. There's an additional opportunity again here to reward outstanding, exceptional achievements also in your short-term incentives, which you will benefit throughout the next year. So maybe there's a lot of theory given by myself. Maybe Harald, maybe Viditza, I'll let you speak and share maybe some experiences in some of the topics that I've just explained, giving some daily insights what it means.
Yeah, maybe I start because so this Spark Awards, they really happen. It's not just a candy that you come here. So we really appreciate our work, what was done. 100 points doesn't seem much, but if it accumulates because you're most likely visible throughout the whole company, that might really be something substantial where you can buy nice Christmas presents then. But it's more the words, you know. I just got a card last time after a presentation. There was no monetary reward, but the words keep me highly motivated. And, you know, money is one thing, but being happy in your job is the other one. And so this opportunity pays off in 2 different ways, on a non-monetary and a monetary level sometimes. But it's, again, the respect and the appreciation, what I think stands first. So I really like the system to really give the points in whatever way to dedicated company members. Yes.
Thank you for that. Is there any question from anyone from the audience?
If there is no question, I wanted to add in to the frequent check-ins. So maybe you think like I did before, that talking to your boss before I started at Novartis, I thought, okay, I have to be careful. It's not a comfortable situation, but I think the frequent check-ins make the culture in which we live, and also the frequent check-ins make a big difference. So talking to your manager is the same feeling like talking to your colleagues, and maybe even better because you can share your troubles, and you will get support, and you will get more future perspective. So I felt good every time afterwards, and it highly supported me in my work and my growth. This is what I wanted to add.
Great, thank you. All right, if there are no further questions, I would be talking a little bit what you also highlighted on the next slide, the importance of flexible work environment and how we do this at Novartis. So we introduced a so-called program, which is named Choice with Responsibility. And what it really means is that we give full flexibility to our associates on when they work, how they work, and where they work. And there are some, I would say, natural boundaries to it, but basically what we really believe is by giving this flexibility to all the associates, and we heard that already, the well-being and the mental health is very, very crucial to all of us, and especially pandemic made it visible that we might need different ways of working, and being there a little bit open-minded, how we address that in a daily way. Responsibility, so this is the choice part of you being an associate of Novartis. The responsibility, it can be fully decided by an associate, but it needs to meet the needs of a team and the manager. So it really is associate driven, as we call it, and team enabled. What do we mean basically? Is it you have the choice how you work, where you work, and when you work. But if the team is working at a very different schedule like you, and you're never there at the team meeting, this is obviously not a successful collaboration. So we do encourage every team to have so-called how conversations. How do we want to collaborate? How do we have a hybrid working model? And this has been quite successful, and people are really enjoying this quite a bit. So people, can be very flexible to the extent of really being 100% in the home office, if this is fine with everyone. I saw in your feedback that the home office flexibility is not such an important topic for you, but maybe especially when it comes when to work. So we are flexible. So if you're an early starter, or if you always, if you have, for example, family, you want to play with your kids or help them with homework or so on, you can switch off the computer, for example, in the afternoon, and then continue work in the evening hours when the kids are to bed. So that's what we mean by the choice about when you work is up to you. Of course, there need to be some interchangeability of knowledge with your teammates. But in general, you're very flexible. If it's a really nice, beautiful day out there, and you have no appointments in the morning, and you would like to go for a hike or go for a run, you feel free to do that. There is no mandatory hours when you have to clock in or clock out. There are some legal boundaries, of course. We're not allowed to have everyone work at night hours, as there are some very, very strict rules about it, and we take it very careful also not to extend to any illegal working hours. It does, of course, look a little bit different if you're working in a production site. As an operator, we need to work at the machinery, but even there we have shift workers that do some documentation work, and every now and then they work from home and do documentation work at home. So in every kind of jobs, it's quite flexible. And then other interesting piece is where you work. So if you decide, your own, you can go to the office and work on site. You can work at home office, and there's another so-called third opportunity as in remote work. What we do understand with remote work is you can pretty much work, from a Starbucks, for example. If there is no confidential information that you're discussing, you can decide to work at any kind of location. You work on a park bench because you like to enjoy the sunshine out there. This is also something you can absolutely do. We also allow people, for example, if they go on vacation or if they have international family members, if they would extend a few days from their vacation in a country, for example, where their relatives are living, they can also work from different countries in the world to a maximum of certain days per year. But you would also be very flexible in working from any international location to a certain limitation. So this is what we understand with remote work. Good. I think we have a question, right?
Yes, we have a question. Yes. Should we read it aloud?
I can read it. So there's a question from Vanessa Maria Knapp. She says, thanks for the great talks. I was wondering if you also need people with life science background or a PhD in sales and marketing. If yes, what are those jobs?
So it's a little bit a different topic to tap into it, but happy to answer it at this stage. I would have come to the very end of the presentation also to this topic. So basically, we are very flexible in the kind of backgrounds we need. We have, and I will be sharing at the very end, a general link. You can find all the job postings. So it really, if there's a business background or a natural science background, as mentioned, we have 5,000 associates, and I think we have, and I wouldn't be able to quote now how many, but we have a lot of openings as well. So with all kind of background and experience level, I would be very confident in saying that there's multiple opportunities at any kind of level with any kind of background. It really is for us important that you also know where you see yourself in your career and in your future, and pick the topics or pick the positions that you personally feel are appealing to you and apply directly for them. I would really encourage you to apply for multiple positions at one time, also because we're such a big company that it really helps to put your CV out there to multiple departments, multiple hiring managers to increase your likelihood of getting the perfect match. So I hopefully have answered this question. Okay.
Yes,
good. Perfect. So being mindful of time, and maybe I'll jump on another topic that maybe in the next 2 or 3 minutes that I would like to answer or to show, present to you when it comes to flexibility at work. Because and there was one question that I very explicitly asked also, how important is it for you to connect family and work? And there are some opportunities that we make possible for all our associates, and one of them is parental leave. And with parental leave, I think we very stand alone here on the job market to really say very prominently and very proud also that we allow 14 weeks of parental leave, meaning a paid leave for every one mother and father when they have when they get a child. So in the first year of giving birth or adopting a child, similarly, every mother, every father is allowed to take 14 weeks, paid weeks of work. This could be at once, or this could be spread across the entire year. But this, I think, is a very unique opportunity to really take this offer and be with your family, especially in the first year when you're having a baby, and really take the time off work and really encourage everyone to spend time with the family and enjoy this time of their life, as this is quite unique. So we really, really are proud of it, but we really also see many people taking advantage, and it's very much encouraged for the entire organization. Another opportunity, because sometimes in your life you just desire to step outside of the working world for personal reasons and do something that you're very passionate about. So it could be a world trip, it could be some personal hobby, it could be working in a mountain hut or something like that. So whatever is your desire outside of work that you want to experience, we allow people to go on a sabbatical for 3 to 12 months every 5 years when they're with us. And by saying that, they would have a guarantee to come back after the time and have the same or a similar job. So this is also an opportunity that we very proudly present, as we know in every job, or and there might be super excitement about it, but there's an urge outside of work also that you would like to go after. So this is something I just wanted to share with all of you as well. So I think if there are no other questions, I'm happy to take questions from all of you for the last couple of minutes, and otherwise I'll show you where to learn more about job opportunities from Novartis. Is there any question out there? No questions? Okay.
Maybe
so, sure.
Maybe I just take the chance to add one point to the choice with responsibility. We also think green here in Novartis. So we do have the possibility for a shuttle bus. I think this was not mentioned in this presentation. We didn't think about it because it's so usual to me, at least, to take the shuttle bus in the morning, so you don't need your private car to come to work. There's a very good connection, let's say in a 20-30 kilometer area to bring you to the site, because in Kundl it's landside. You might not live very close to where you work, but is also quite good sometimes. So there is the opportunity for the shuttle bus, again a chance to interconnect with other people, and also saving some CO2 emissions by using this shuttle bus. On the other hand, shuttle bus might take a bit longer than a private car, but the choice responsibility for me, especially, I work Monday, Thursday in the lab very efficiently. I try, but Friday might be the day to work off-site, so work at home, saving time, being efficient, being uninterrupted in really evaluating what I did the whole week long, and then it might also be the time to work or to close work earlier, because you save the shuttle bus time, and you are at home and you can start in the well-deserved weekend after evaluating your things.
Okay, cool. Thank you for this addition. There is probably many more benefits that we haven't mentioned at this stage. There's, I don't know, there's insurance also for your private endeavors, for example. I think we've talked about the canteen and it's supported money-wise. So there's a lot of other smaller benefits. I think it would take us much longer to list all of them, but once you are in the company, you will hear about them, you will learn about it, and sometimes we take them for granted, but I think it's really, really great what we offer to people being part of this network. With that being said, and also being mindful of time, and again, you find the link in the presentation, but also happy to share it right in the chat with you. We have many opportunities, as mentioned, in all different kind of fields, and this is ranging from what we heard today in the scientist, in the development and research area, but also in the manufacturing areas, as we heard from Ditsa, so being in the production, but also there's so many profiles that we wouldn't be able to summarize all of them. Obviously, in the quality environment, regulatory, there's so much more that we could offer. As mentioned, in Vienna, we're very strong with marketing sales initiatives. So there's a huge variety of jobs out there, and we really can just encourage you to go on our Novartis site, as I posted it in the chat. Check it out, and really don't be shy. Send your CV in. I can also encourage you, if you would like to share your CV upfront without applying directly a job, but being part of the Novartis network, you can go to the second link. This is connected with today's event. The opportunity there is really to upload your CV. If you do that and giving the permission to be part of the Novartis network, your CV is already in our database. So whenever we have a job offering, we would definitely also look into this database proactively. Our recruiters will also work with the CVs that you're submitting on this link, and maybe you get also an opportunity proactively by us reaching out to you, and not only the other way around, you sending your active application. But I would definitely recommend to not rely only on that, but also really pick out from the many job offers that we have to offer what is of your interest and apply directly for that position. And I think Harald mentioned it, don't be shy if you're not fitting 100% of the profile. I think we're absolutely happy to review your CV and check. There's many things that you can learn on the job. The mindset is very, very crucial for us, and this is why we also pointed out the values and behavior. If this feels like an environment you would like to work in, we're happy to get in touch with you.
Yeah, and maybe just very shortly to add on that, keep in mind you can only win in the lottery if you have a ticket for the lottery, and this ticket is for free.